afternoon. I'm Elmi Castleman from Golden Key, Southern Africa. Welcome. We'll give a couple of minutes for people to join. We have as our expert specialist today, Dr. Michael Sanseviro. I will introduce him a bit more comprehensively once we have most of our participants online. Whilst you log online, at the bottom of your screen, you will see there are two boxes. One is Q&A and the other one chat. In the meantime, use the chat box and tell us who you are and from where you are. So you can just complete it in the chat box, just who you are. Hello, Joanita. Joanita Kapp is from Queenstown, Eastern Cape. Welcome. So for those who just joined, please use your chat box at the bottom and write down there who you are and from where you are. Tertia Oosthuizen from Northwest Potch, Charlotte Botha from Texas, Gous, I don't know her name, Grant from South Africa, Kyla Mizen from Gauteng, Eddie Lindeke from Gauteng, somebody from Maryland, I missed the name, Laura from Gauteng, Denver, Setulu from Nkandla, Sandiso from PE, Cordelia from Bellingham. Well done. For those who haven't put their name in, Mokondelia from Thohoyandou, Kelly from the Netherlands, Maud from, I'll see now, Rejoice from South Africa, Port Elizabeth in South Africa. So we have a good, yes, for one from Netherlands, Kelly Alexander. Rejoice is from P, I said that, and there's a Deirdre online. Lester from Cape Town. Thank you guys. Mamutena from Louis Trichardt, Bianca from Northern Cape. Very good demographic representation from Golden Key members. Good to see that. So for those who just joined, I'm Elmi Castleman. I'm the Director for Southern Africa Golden Key. And with me, I have a specialist presenter today, who's Dr. Michael Sanseviro, and we will introduce him in a minute. Please make sure that you, in the chat box, tell me who you are, from where are you. Deirdre is from the VUT, the Vaal University of Technology. Cornelia is from, yes, you are all muted, Cornelia, sorry. Yes, everyone is muted. Then we have Dr. Mashigo from Johannesburg. It seems to me we almost have all provinces and then a couple of people from global. That's wonderful. You are all very welcome. Eddie from Northwest, Natasha from Pretoria. I'm going to give another couple of minutes because it's only 1 minute past 3 now. Use your chat box to announce your presence, who you are and from where you are. Dr. Nageza from KZN, he also attended our webinar yesterday. Welcome, Doctor. Joandre, and I think that Ms. Kapp, she also attended yesterday's webinar with Jansen on HFM. So I do see we have people who attend our webinars frequently. Thank you for that. Tells you we do something right. Joandre is from Namibia. Welcome. Good. And then we have Junior from Afakeng. You are welcome. Those who join, use your chat box to announce your presence, please, who you are, from where you are. Simone from Pretoria, welcome. Lauren from Cape Town. Rifaro from Cape Town. Sanisha from Johannesburg. Gerda from Hernertsburg, welcome. Alton from Pretoria. Kamu from Lady Brandt. Luan from Johannesburg. Welcome, everybody. Use your chat box to just tell me who you are, from where you are. Jenna from Johannesburg, well done. Just for those who just joined, I'm Almy Castleman. I'm from Golden Key, Southern Africa. And I have with me our expert presenter, Dr. Michael Sanseviro. And I'll introduce him better in a minute. Ntombifuti from Johannesburg, welcome. We have just over 50 registrations now. That's great. And I expect a couple of more to join. We have 3 minutes past 3. So yes, Lorata from Bloemfontein, Elizabeth from Cape Town. Welcome everybody. I'm going to give it till 3:05, and then I'm going to introduce our guest and hand over to him.
Wonderful.
Another 2 minutes. For those who haven't announced themselves, are in the chat box at the bottom. Just put your name and from where you are so that we can say hi to you. And I'm also interested to see the broad representation, the demographic and geographical representation. That's always very good and promising for me, that virtual can actually bring people together even though we're not together physically. So that's wonderful. Elizabeth from Cape Town, welcome. Emma from Johannesburg. Posiletsu from Gauteng. Njabalu from KwaZulu-Natal. Christy from Pretoria. I see a number of people who attended yesterday and also today. You are more than welcome. Thank you for supporting the webinars. Joyce from Mpumalanga. Hello, Joyce. Right, I'm going to start now. So I'm Almy Castleman. I'm the director for the Southern region, Southern Africa region for Golden Key International Honor Society. And thank you for joining our virtual webinar. And I'm going to introduce you to our expert presenter for today. He is Dr. Michael Sanseviro. Michael, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And it's 9 o'clock where Michael is, so we really had to synchronize our time differences. Dr. Michael Sanseviro is the president of the International Leadership Council for Golden Key, and he has served in numerous leadership roles in the society, including chapter advisor for over a decade. Michael serves as the Associate Vice President for Student Engagement and Dean of Students at the Georgia State University, where Golden Key was founded, as we know. He has served multiple higher education institutions throughout his 30-year career and received numerous recognitions for his work. So he's no stranger in Golden Key, and he's also no stranger in academic circles. We're very privileged to have him with us today. Originally, he's from Long Island, New York, in the United States. Dr. Sanseviro is committed to community service and loves to travel the world and has attended multiple international summits, including visits to Australia, and yes, we were happy to have him in South Africa as well. In addition to serving on the Golden Key board as the ILC president, he also volunteers on the board of directors for LGE Community Credit Union and is also the president of Waterdowns Homeowners Association. A published author, he was nominated for Author of the Year in 2011 by the Georgia Writers Association. So thank you very much. We have a high caliber presenter with us today, our guest, who's no stranger in Golden Key. Thank you very much. Irrespective of the difficult times we're in, the difference in time, the difference in continents, we look forward to hear how we can learn from you on engaging and servicing students virtually. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Michael Sanseviro. I just want to say one more thing. Use your Q&A box to post your questions, and we will respond to those questions, and I will interrupt Dr. Michael Sanseviro from time to time to read out the questions so that everybody can benefit from those content-related questions. So we have now 61 people online. Welcome, everybody. I hand over to Dr. Michael Sanseviro. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Elmi. I am so honored to be invited to be a part of this time with you, and do know how much I appreciate the invitation. Also know that here in the United States, this is our spring, and the southeastern United States where I live happens to be famous for its pollen. And so it is allergy season here. And so do know that if I get a little cough or dry throat, it is absolutely not COVID related. It is allergy related. But that is the season that we are in here. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about what this journey has looked like for us and some of the ways that in higher education we are able to meet the needs of students, and how really this quote, which has been attributed to a number of people through the years, from Plato to Einstein, but regardless of who first said it, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to think and engage in some new and different ways. And I think that while there are absolutely challenges that we are facing at the moment, and challenges we will continue to face, particularly with some of the financial difficulties that we are feeling around the world, I do think that we also are going to see some new and exciting innovations that will come forward as a result of us having to find solutions to our current reality. So one of the things that first came on as I started thinking through, in the United States, the state that I happen to work in is the state of Georgia in the southeastern United States, and the city of Atlanta is where I work in Georgia. And we have a university system in this state that has 26 higher education institutions that comprise the system. On March 11th, late that afternoon into the early evening, we received an email from our university system chancellor informing us that as of 5 p.m. on Friday, March 13th, less than 48 hours later, the entire system would be shut down for a 2-week period while we made the transition to an online learning environment. As you might imagine, with being given less than 48 hours notice across the entire state with over 350,000 students that we serve across our 26 institutions, we had some challenges that we had to face very quickly. And so a few key things that my team and I got together and started talking about. First, who is our audience? Who is it that we are serving, and what do they need? First and foremost, of course, are the students. But we also know that our students are diverse and come from a variety of backgrounds. Some of them have parents that they care for or families that they have to take care of. And so we needed to think not only about our students, but also the broader social network of the families that our students are part of. Of course, our employees, as much as we needed to focus on our students, we also know that our faculty and staff were being impacted equally by this. So we had to prioritize what the needs were. We had to look at what resources we had available to us and what were the resources that we needed and what was the feasibility of getting the resources we didn't have as quickly as we needed them, knowing that that was not really going to be possible in a lot of cases. We also asked ourselves, what must change immediately and what can change in phases? So for instance, we knew that the fact that within less than 48 hours notice, we were going to be physically disconnecting from our student body. In the institution where I serve, I have 6 campuses around Metro Atlanta. I have 54,000 students within my institution, about 6,000 of whom were living physically on our campuses. And we were told that we had to migrate those residential students back to their home environments. But of those 6,000 students, not all of them were able to get to their homes. We have a large international population. We have students who came from different socioeconomic backgrounds. We had some students who didn't have a permanent home to go to. So we needed to look at how are we still going to meet these diverse needs while doing our best to make sure that we weren't leaving anybody in dire situations that might impact their well-being. So as we talk about student needs, some of you may be familiar with what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's commonly used in the social sciences and education as a way to think about the motivation and developmental needs that we as human beings have. And one of the first important things we all discussed was we had to acknowledge the change and loss. The reality is none of us asked for this. This was not something that was our fault, and it was not something that was within our control. But yet, our lives were about to change and change radically. And for many of our students, particularly our Golden Key members, many of whom were getting ready to celebrate their graduations, many of whom were looking forward to transitions into jobs, we had to acknowledge the fact that they were losing important milestones in their lives. Our new member recognition event at my own university was scheduled to occur the week after we went into our lockdown situation. And so we had to immediately discuss, how are we still going to honor all of these new members, knowing that we could not physically come together? We also had to look at how we support and redefine expectations, because the reality is that if you are a professor who is teaching an online class and you knew you were going to be teaching an online class, you would have had a significant amount of time, typically in advance, to prepare that online curriculum, to have a syllabus and assignments that were appropriate for an online learning environment. But yet, you may, in the situation where you're told in less than 48 hours, by the way, we're all going online, the faculty, many of whom had never taught online before, were not adequately prepared. So we needed to help students understand, we're going to first focus in the short run on your physiological and safety needs. But then we also, as we are able to phase in support services, will shift into those higher level needs. One of the other famous quotes that's often used in business and a number of industries is, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. One of the things we really had to reinforce for all of us, and I am a bit of a perfectionist, so I will own that I always want everything to be the best that it possibly can be. But the reality is, we were not in a situation where we were going to be able to create perfection for our students. We knew we were not going to be able to have every single class. If we had a biology lab where the students were used to doing certain activities in biology and chemistry in a physical space, to fully emulate that experience in a virtual world in 48 hours notice probably was not going to happen to the best of our ability. But we still needed to find ways to do it. And so we started having a conversation about what is the difference between online learning and at a distance. And so we had to talk about the fact that at a distance means we couldn't physically be together, but not everything was by design in the traditional online learning space. We also had some difficult conversations about access and equity. At my university, we have a very large percentage of students who come from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds. We have students who live in areas where they don't have access to internet, or they don't have the tools that they need to be successful. So we very quickly as a university pulled together all of the resources we could, every iPad, every laptop, every Surface Pro, every hotspot, and we created an online request form so that students could let us know. And then we also were reaching out through every mechanism we could, through text, through chatbot. We were trying to find out from our students, what do we need to do to keep you connected and keep you able to be successful in this new environment, and we will get you those tools. We did home delivery. We did express shipping. We did everything we had to get tools in the hands of our students so they could stay connected and be engaged. We also talked about what was going to be by design and what was going to be by demand. And what I mean by that is certain things you very intentionally and intelligently design to work a certain way. However, under the circumstances we found ourselves, we didn't have the time for everything to be truly by design. So we did determine what is already by design something we could implement, and what are the things that, based on our demand, we have to find alternative solutions for. Which also led to a conversation about the difference between synchronous and asynchronous. So right now, we together in this Zoom webinar are having a Golden Key talk in a synchronous environment where we are all together at the same time in the same way. Even though we are across great time distances and space differences, we are physically engaging in this activity together. But we also understand that given the great diverse lives that our students lead, that we would not be able to deliver all of our services synchronously, but we were going to have to be able to engage environments where we could have lectures and materials and chats that a professor might post at 2 in the afternoon, but the students might not engage in until 2 in the morning. And so we have a combination of synchronous activities as well as the majority of our learning being done in an asynchronous manner. The other important conversation we had, particularly when it comes to working with our student leaders, and this was something that's important to me as a Golden Key advisor, that there are different philosophies to how you advise an organization. I believe very strongly that organizations are of the students, that the students are the core and what the organization exists for. And so I wanted to be very clear as I was working with our student groups that we are doing this with you, but that you are still the lead of your organization. There are some services that we did for students, but our student engagement was predominantly designed doing with students, so that we were always focused on the students being at the core and taking lead as much as they could for owning their experiences. So with that, we created a theme of keep learning and living. We wanted to have a few key kind of guiding principles that drive the work of how to move into a virtual space and keep engaged. So first and foremost, of course, higher education is about gaining your degrees and getting your academic proficiencies and credentials. So engaging academics was the first priority. Then we very quickly looked at how we engage the activities that support the academic experience, so that students could still have a very robust and full life, both inside and outside the classroom in a virtual way. And so we talked about a whole host of activities that I'll get into specific examples in just a moment. We also thought it was really important that we not lose sight of engaging well-being. It is so important in these difficult times when we are all at a distance that we still are focusing on our physical health, our mental health, feeling that we are not isolated and alone, but that we have support networks. And so one of the things at my university that we very quickly did, and I know this has happened in a number of different ways in different places, is we immediately activated 24-hour-a-day telehealth and mental health services so that our students could immediately start calling in or engaging in the web with professional doctors and counselors who could assist them with whatever challenges they might be facing. We also put together an administrative support network that was available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so through the Dean of Students office with my team, we engaged in a manner that students never felt they would have to wait on an answer, because we understood the high anxiety our students were facing. This was part of also this professional and peer-sponsored engagement. We wanted to make sure that there was a good, robust mix of activities that were being professionally sponsored by myself and my colleagues, but then simultaneously worked with our peers to ask them what engagement looks like for them. So for instance, when our Golden Key chapter wanted to keep engaged in some social fun activities on the weekends, they hosted a Wii karaoke sing-along experience. And again, I was able to join in and be part of the fun. But the students really were the ones who engaged that peer engagement. And this also led us to really important conversations about work-life balance. One of the challenges of working remotely and working from home, as many of us are experiencing ourselves over this last month or so, is that you spend so many hours in front of your screen in these meetings that sometimes it feels like your day goes on and on and on, and you find it challenging to know when to stop and have a break. And so it became very important to us that we built in intentional opportunities for work-life balance. And I'll give some examples of those in a moment as well. We also talked about how we keep serving and supporting. So one of the things that we also very quickly learned, because so many of our students are also working, but many of them are working part-time jobs or working in industries that were the hardest hit by the crisis, we all of a sudden overnight had a huge unemployment rate. And so we went from having over 90% of our students who were working as well as going to classes to having over 70% of the student body all of a sudden losing forms of employment and income. We had students who were facing homelessness. We had students with food insecurities. We have food pantries on our campuses, but because of the health crisis, we had to close all of our physical pantries. So we had to work with community agencies and other partners to create short-term solutions to these very real and immediate needs as we were serving our students. So we did a crowdsourcing emergency assistance fund. We immediately went live with that the minute we got the announcement that we were going to be closing. And within a very short period of time, in under 24 hours, we raised tens of thousands of dollars that we were able to then quickly transition through my office. We created a real-time online application form that students could log in and express whatever emergency needs they were needing. We had thousands of students that submitted requests, and all of the students who identified immediate food insecurities, we were able to get instant food credit and food vouchers working with some of our community agencies so that students would still be able to get their essential needs met, and they were able to get them met in very quick time. We also did a lot of connecting in real time, making sure that we were helping to engage students 24 hours a day. I already mentioned our telehealth and counseling services. We also shifted all of our academic advising as well as our financial advising into a virtual space. So we were able to have, by shifting to home environments, we also were able to work with the work-life balance of our employees, many of whom have young children whose children were now no longer in school. So the parents had to homeschool children. And so we said to our employees, particularly those who were parents, if you would rather do shift adjustments so that during the day hours, when you are working with your kids on their schoolwork, you can be focused on that instead of needing to do the work for us. But instead, maybe after hours when the kids go to bed, you can then come on and be a third shift worker, and you can do our virtual support at night. And that way it gives you the flexibility to manage your home responsibilities, as well as still being able to be a productive and engaged employee in ways that actually helped us to serve our students better than we ever were serving them before the crisis had occurred. So our career services support, we immediately shifted to all online. And so for our students who were in the process of trying to do job interviews, we went ahead and did virtual job coaching so that we were able to do resume and CV adjustments for them in real time. We also were able to have our advisors connect with them and coach them and practice what an interview would be like, so that knowing many of our students weren't used to virtual interviews, they could have a real experience with one of our staff first to practice and get comfortable before they had to talk to their employer online. And then, of course, also the tutoring support shifted to an online environment. So as we looked at some of the mechanisms of engagement, one of the things we very quickly realized, too, is there are a lot of different tools out there. And many of them, of course, are wonderful tools with different pros and cons. Some, of course, also have different price points. But as a university, we already had access to state contracts and to government contracts for WebEx, for Microsoft Teams, for Skype. And so we immediately made those mechanisms available to all of our students for free to use to engage with each other, with their relatives, to engage with peers, so that not only could they use those tools for their schoolwork, but they could use them for their personal lives as well. We also worked with our faculty to make sure that they understood that even though we have those tools, that sometimes when you have connectivity issues or students who have limited internet access, sometimes the old-fashioned telephone is the best way to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. And so that was one of the things we talked about, was how do you engage all of the tools available to you? We also talked about how to enhance our learning management systems to be able to create a better virtual support network. Our data management systems, behind the scenes, all of our data management systems with our third parties, we were able to reach out and activate additional modules so that we could use chat features if we needed to send text messages, which again, systems we hadn't previously been using, but we were able to expand services very quickly. We also have an entire virtual student organization support platform. And so I just did a couple screenshots down here to talk about ways that we at least got, because we have over 500 student organizations. Golden Key is one of the organizations that I serve, but our students at our university have over 500 different options, and we wanted each and every one of them to stay equally engaged. So we gave them virtual platforms with special virtual rooms they could connect in both synchronously and asynchronously, depending on their preferences. We also engaged our student media. Our university is very lucky that we have a live radio station that is also connected with a public radio station license. So we were able to shift into virtual mode to keep our radio station live 24 hours a day. We also have a TV station that our students run. So we got equipment out to the students' homes so the students could continue doing live news broadcasts from their homes to engage with each other as peers, as well as keep the stories moving. And then, of course, lots of social media engagement, which I'll talk about again more in a moment. So just some of the programming ideas as we talk about some of the nuts and bolts of what can this virtual engagement look like. So we engaged a lot of theme-related activities, which normally in the online and on-campus space, when we're all physically together, you know, we have certain weeks of theme programming that we do. We shifted all of those into a virtual space. So one of the themes, realizing how stressed our students were going to be in this new environment, especially as we went into final exams, is we created a De-Stress Fest week. And with that De-Stress Fest, we were able to have counselors, we were able to have our recreation staff, we were able to have different student leaders all engage in different virtual activities. We started video blogs, podcasts. We did daily and weekly tips that we would blast out to our students as well as employees. We did coffee chats. So we started doing a morning coffee chat series where each different day at a certain hour of the morning, you could log in and you could have virtual coffee with one of our senior leaders, and we would answer questions and find out how your day was going, how things were adjusting, and if there was anything we could be doing better to serve you. We then, with our students who are of age to drink legally in the United States, as well as with our employees, has started doing virtual happy hours. So we would close out the week at 5 o'clock every Friday with a virtual happy hour. And we would get our glasses of wine and beer, and we would all be in our homes toasting each other for completing another successful week of our virtual lives. So trying to emulate as much as we could some of the in-person experiences, but in a new virtual way. The other series that was wildly popular, because we did have food pantries that did get closed, one of the services we offer to our students with food insecurities is we have nutritionists who work with our students on cooking demonstrations and also teaching them how to eat healthy but on a budget. One of the challenges, as you all probably face around the world as well, is that the healthiest foods often are the most expensive foods. And so it is difficult sometimes to eat the way you know you need to eat when instead you can buy a bunch of ramen noodles and pastas and things very cheaply. But so we shifted all of our cooking demonstrations into the virtual world. And what we very quickly found is we were having 300 to 400 students log into every virtual cooking demonstration. And then we were posting the videos where we would have thousands of other views, where when we used to do those live cooking demonstrations on campus, we might have 20 or 30 students attend. So we actually found that moving into a virtual space with a lot of our services and programs helped us reach more people than we had ever reached before. We also started an entire series of scavenger hunts and contests. So through our learning portals, as well as through our social network portals, students could engage in activities where they would earn different points for the things they completed. And we are tracking all of those activities that they engage in. One of the other things, because we did shift into a virtual environment, in the United States, our financial structure of how our university collects dues, we have tuition dollars, and then we also have student activity fees. And so we had our fees, because students were not going to be physically on campus, we had to refund a percentage of the fees for the current semester, as well as we had already made the decision that for our June and July term, that was going fully online. And so we have waived all of the fees for the equivalent of our summer term. Because of that, the income of my area, we lost millions of dollars of income that we normally use to support salaries and fees. And so because of that, we wanted to be very strategic. As we start to re-engage, as we move into September and October, we are going to be giving away certain prizes and having certain celebratory activities as we move into times when we can come back together based on the points students are earning now. And even for students who graduate, we're going to be doing special alumni engagement activities for them to come back, earn their rewards, get their celebrations. And so we are going to be connecting in a variety of different ways to keep students very engaged. The other thing that we decided to do too, knowing that we could not do it all ourselves, but that there were lots of wonderful resources across the world. One of the nice things about living in Atlanta is we have a very robust arts community, and many of those arts members put their services online. There were virtual tours of museums, there were performances of opera that went online, plays, and so we connected our students through a portal with all of the virtual opportunities that existed in the community. So just to give you an example, again, the website, we immediately, and again, because we had to work very quickly to make this transition in 48 hours time, we went ahead and launched this whole new virtual activity site. And so students could click on any of these different modules and connect to a variety of different opportunities and services that we had to help them stay healthy, stay connected during this time. And again, I've already talked about a variety of these, but this just gives you a taste of all the different ways that we try to help keep our students very connected and engaged. We also try to use some creative solutions and engagements with social media. We know our students live in lots of different social media platforms, and we also know that the hashtag has become the common way to create some common themed conversations. So we went ahead and created a 7-day social media engagement approach, where each day of the week would have a different social engagement theme. And so we had our hashtag Music Mondays, where people would engage in musical experiences. And we encouraged students to try new musical experiences that they had never experienced before. And then we had our Talk Tuesdays. The hashtag Talk Tuesdays also became particularly popular with Golden Key, because our Golden Key chapter started hosting their own chapter-based Talk Tuesdays, where they could connect with Golden Key members and talk about new projects, new learning, things that they were working on. And they also started, which I thought was really exciting, talking about, while we can't travel right now, because many of our students were engaged in education abroad and had to unfortunately return from education abroad experiences because of the COVID-19 crisis. And so we asked these students to share what were their future travel plans and how were they going to still engage this international experience and culture when the time came that they could do so. And it has been fascinating to watch the students who had already had some wonderful travel experiences share those experiences, and those who shared their dreams, and those who dreamed of going to places where they haven't yet been were then connecting with other Golden Key members who said, I've been there or I'm from there, and they were able to connect with new people and learn new things about each other that are now supporting what their future dreams will be. And so again, you can go through all the different days of the week and see the different ways that we were going to continue to engage. But we wanted to make sure that every single day there was opportunity for some new and different type of engagement that would also utilize different parts of skill sets and strengths that we all have as human beings to keep us developing and growing in healthy ways in this virtual space. Also, very importantly, was to make time to celebrate. And so again, I know that through Golden Key, we've hosted a number of virtual new member recognition events, and I was honored to be able to speak at a few of those. We just did a virtual commencement. What we decided at our university is we did not want to do an online graduation because we still want there to be the physical graduation ceremony in the fall or at some point when it is safe to bring people back together. So we did a virtual celebration and acknowledgement of all of the graduates, had opportunities to still have a keynote speaker and still be able to have some of the pomp and circumstance with regalia so people could be engaged. But then we are going to now, everyone was doing their selfies with their regalia on, which then goes into a big celebration portal. We then are going to do during the homecoming when we are able to engage in person, we have a section of our football stadium where we will be doing a homecoming celebration for all of the graduates from the 2020 class to come back and be able to get special additional unique regalia just for them as new young alumni joining our organization in a new way so that we can continue to celebrate them and help to do our best to replace some of the experiences that they lost along the way. And so celebrating those milestones for all of us are so important. We're also doing the same for our employees. We're celebrating our parents and families. And so we really are trying to make sure that people still feel honored in ways that are meaningful to them, even in these difficult times. So with that, I want to open it up for questions. And of course, also thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation to join you. I appreciate you joining us for everything you're doing for each other, for students, for Golden Key, for your colleagues and your communities. I know how hard a time this is for all of us, but it is because of the leadership of outstanding people like all of our Golden Key members who really are helping to keep this world in a positive place and keep this world moving forward through the most difficult times. And so thank you so much for everything you are doing.
Thank you, Michael. I want to read you some comments from our participants. And it says, wonderful, wonderful ideas. Virtual is better for me because it eliminates travel. Thus, it's much cheaper, easier to fit into your schedule. Good to be joining you. Oh, this is awesome. Somebody asked that they please would like to have access to the YouTube version afterwards, which will be, they want to know where it will be. So we gave them the link. Another person say, love that. Another one, happy to see you. We will keep going with virtual. These are incredible interventions. Well done to you. Wonderful ideas. Thank you. The webinars are amazing. Please schedule them in your diary. The ideas are practical and achievable. Golden Key talks are really good, and I enjoyed this so much. Energized me for the challenge of virtual lecturing. Gained lots of new ideas. Thanks. So that's great. Here's another one. Very interesting. This is just feedback. I believe you are doing an amazing job. I've gained some ideas. that I will share with people around me. It's so important that the well-being of students was considered. Well done. So wonderful, overwhelming positive feedback. The main challenge for us all is to reach out to students. You are inspirational. How do you keep track of the percentage of students that are engaging with you online? You can answer that. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So we actually have, through our different virtual experiences and portals, we have a single sign-on system that we use, that every time students log on, that they use an ID and password to log into the system, and then the system behind the scenes tracks all of their engagement, so we can pull engagement reports. And we also have a chatbot feature where students can engage with chats and get text messaging. And so those systems also have a ping back feature where every time students engage with different pieces of technology, we are tracking all of those different engagements. And one of the things actually that we've been doing, part of the management team that I work with in our Division of Student Success, we actually every single day, we have a call at 3 o'clock every afternoon where all of the senior leaders from across the university get on the phone together for an hour, and we look at all the daily reports. We look at every student's tracking of who's logged in to their classes, who's logged into their social activities, and we look at those trends. And then we also pull a report. Any student who has not logged in or had any engagement in over 72 hours, we have a special outreach program that we do to reach out to those students specifically. We have an advisor call them on their phone and ask them if they're having connection issues, if they're having any kind of challenges that we can assist them with, because we noticed that they hadn't engaged in a little while. And so we've been very intentional in how we've been trying to both track as well as intervene for those who might not be engaging.
Thank you, Michael. A couple of other comments. Exciting new challenges. Thank you very much for this enlightening information. We are getting there, and I hope that one day we shall have that enthusiasm you exuded. Most we are doing, but is a little catchy. I guess we shall get there. Well done, Dr. Sanseviro and Castleman. Thank you for inviting me. Excellent stuff. It's from Dr. Nagesa. Rejoice, I like your creativity, Michael. Keep up with the good work. Leandi, Dr. Sanseviro, well done on achieving so much more for the students and staff. Elizabeth Smith again, I was reminded about our own needy students in terms of food security, and with trying to get everything in place for online teaching. We forgot to include them in our planning. Thanks for reminding us. Another one, wow, I wish it was like this at our university. Thank you for sharing these great ideas for engaging students. My question is around assessments. I am a high school teacher. My challenge now is to prepare my students to graduate high school at the end of the year, the grade 12s. However, with transitioning online, the challenge has been obtain reliable and valid marks. Do you have any tips?
So, part of what we've been looking at, and the assessment piece is definitely a whole nother challenge that we're facing right now, because moving into the virtual space, one of the other challenges, and again, I tried to focus mostly on all the positive things we're doing, but we also, of course, are trying to maintain standards. And so my office also oversees all student conduct as well as academic integrity. And so any student who's accused of any form of cheating or plagiarism gets referred to my office, and we do a whole investigation. And then we have restorative measures that we use that should we find a student did engage in any inappropriate behavior or violations of the code, we have now actually started using some virtual sanctions. And so we've created some virtual engagement tools, one of which is a vendor out of the United States called Academic Integrity. And they do academic integrity seminars that also include some basic skill refinement. And so what we found was that for some of our students who were plagiarizing or engaging in cheating, they didn't even realize they were doing it. And so through this webinar, instead of being punitive and focusing on punishing students, we wanted to be proactive and developmental and use tools that would help get students prepared, because a lot of the students we were finding who were having challenges were our first year students who were brand new to the university, because some of them felt that they didn't necessarily get that level of preparation from high school to understand what the standards would be in college. So what I would say is that there are a lot of different online tools out there. Our university has some that we've designed, but we've also, again, not reinvented the wheel if there are other better tools. One of the ones we borrow a lot from is from Purdue University out of Indiana. Purdue has a whole online virtual support network that teaches basic skills to students who need refreshers on things like grammar, things like some basic math skills, and they do some online mini tutorials. And so I've been trying to work with students who I feel could use those refresher skills and get them engaged with some of those. But yeah, the assessment piece, also looking at, while we want to be reasonable in understanding that these are difficult times and students and faculty were not prepared for this online virtual experience, we still wanted to maintain a certain level of standards. And so part of what we've been looking at in looking at grade assessments are there other creative measures if you have a student who, for whatever reason, has failed the online quiz or test, to not just automatically fail the student, but to look at, are there other ways you can connect with the student to assess in a different way whether or not they truly are learning the material? And if they're not, how can we find alternative methods to try to get them back up to speed? Because we also are finding, and you probably are finding this around the world, so many of our students also have different learning disabilities and different challenges in trying to transition from one environment to another. Their test anxiety becomes even worse when they're having to deal with sitting in front of a computer where there's a lockdown browser watching them take an exam, and they get nervous that if they look too far left or right, they're going to be accused of cheating. And so it has taken a lot of extra effort on the part of those teaching. So do know that I completely understand this is a lot more work to do this well, but it's those extra steps. Also, I would say take advantage of those who have expertise and can support you outside of just the learning environment. So for instance, again, I'm lucky enough to have a wonderful team of professional counselors who do disability services. And so if I have a student who's struggling, and I'm trying, and they are not demonstrating the level of assessment that we think they should, I can reach out to disability services and ask them to check if the student might be having some struggles.
Thank you. Some more comments that I quickly want to go through. Let me just get there. People that saying thank you. Other people teach primary age children. She teaches primary age children, and we have had to navigate the area of safeguarding and cyber safety. Have you come across any cyber safety issues, and how did you address these?
I have, and we've actually come across them in, because I'm dealing with college age students. Some of the situations we've dealt with have actually been fairly serious and impactful. We've had what would be the equivalent of a form of sexual misconduct in a virtual situation, where we're having students who are harassing or stalking students virtually. And so we've had some of those cyber situations, and we've had to deal with those through our conduct process, where we have investigated the situation. In a couple situations, we've actually suspended some students because of their behavior. We've had some students where we told them that that we could no longer give them access to the online portals. And so they were going to have to take some time away from the university while they were focusing on their behaviors. We have engaged our counselors a lot to do some counseling with the students who may not even be aware, because we also are finding that we're having to strike a balance between free speech rights and students feeling the right to express themselves, but also not doing it in a way that's causing emotional harm to other people. And so we've done some virtual mediations with students who have been in conflict with other peers. We have dealt with a whole host of situations that we've been dealing with. We also are dealing with even students who have had to return home who are having domestic violence situations. And so we've had to work with local agencies, including police enforcement, to be able to address some of those issues as well. So we have had a host of challenges that we have had to face. And, you know, again, our solutions may not be perfect right now, because I know it's hard to sometimes fully engage to the depth that we need to. But we've had some, we've been doing virtual conduct hearings and virtual mediations. We're absolutely doing our best to still try to engage in meaningful outcomes while still holding students accountable for their behaviors.
Thank you, Michael. We also have another fantastic from Unita Nkateko. Thanks, everyone. It's been good. Stephen de Vries, very insightful. I would definitely forward some of these ideas to our skills development providers for our skills development programs. He is from the SETA, the Sector Education and Training Authority. Then Amy Dillon. I teach, we just went through the primary teaching challenge. Then we also have, right, I just want to remind everybody before I go to the others, please make sure that everybody in attendance follow Southern Africa Golden Key on social media platforms: Facebook, Golden Key Southern Africa; Twitter, @GoldenKey, _SA; Instagram, @GoldenKey Southern Africa; and LinkedIn, Golden Key Southern Africa. So Facebook and LinkedIn, it's the same, Golden Key Southern Africa. Instagram is @GoldenKey Southern Africa, and Twitter @GoldenKey_South Africa. Let's see, there are some others. How do we inspire students to enroll for courses in music or other performance fields when it will be a long time before we can practice or apply these skills?
Yeah, well, part of what we've been trying to do to address the application component is trying to get students to feel enough comfort to be willing to have fun with it. And so, and that's part of, like, when we talked about the hashtag Music Mondays, we've been encouraging students not only to share and engage in different performances and see new things, but then asking them to post their own videos of them practicing a skill or engaging in music. And we keep telling them this isn't about the quality of it. If anything, we tell them, learn to laugh at yourself and have fun even while you're learning a new skill, and try to encourage people to be positive in supporting the people who are willing to take risks and do that. But that's been part of how we've been trying to engage the skill building piece, is by encouraging people at home. Now, of course, we also realize there are some skills where they may not have the equipment they need at home, and that may be challenging. But we have found, even with music, one of our music majors who studies piano, who actually doesn't have a piano available to them, they were able to find an online virtual piano that, through the keyboard, it wasn't an exact fit, but I think it was one that still allowed them to practice scales using a traditional keyboard that gave them the same sense of how the finger mechanisms would work. And so they were using that as a way to practice and develop skills even in a virtual space without physically having a piano there.
Thank you, Michael. Another one. How do you assist students to be motivated? Whether synchronous or asynchronous, it always seems like it's only a few of them engaged.
Yes, well, it was really kind of funny, because when we first started sending emails out to students to explain the transitions and what we were doing, we were looking at the open rates of the emails, and the open rates were horrible. We were only getting about 20% of our student body who were actually opening and reading the emails that we were sending. We then tried having the university president send emails, thinking that might get more attention. and the open rate still didn't break 30%, even when the president sent the email. So we quickly realized email wasn't working. And so we started switching to other forms of communication. We started doing a lot more outreach through social media, as well as doing texting, which I have challenges with personally, because I don't want to over abuse any one tool and have students become numb to it. So I said we had to be very intentional about what we were going to text out to students. But when we started texting links to students, we did find, and when we also were using chatbot technology, all of a sudden the open rate and response rate jumped up to 70% from in the 20s. So those tools do work. We just need to use them wisely and sparingly. On the motivation piece, I think a lot of it is looking at what might be some of the incentives. And that's part of why we added the point systems and some of the engagement tools. So we've put together a list of prizes you can win. And so if you have 100 engagement points over the course of, X period of time, you can get a coffee mug. And then if you have 500 points, you can get a t-shirt. And if you have 700 points, you get a hat. And 1,000 points, you get a bookstore credit. And so we tried to build in incentives that way. Because we are having some budget crises at the moment, we did build in some things so that some of the points are short-term prizes, but a lot of them are longer-term prizes where they won't actually earn the physical things until after we come back in the fall. So that way we will be on the next fiscal year budget so that we have more time to figure out how we're going to actually pay for the things we're promising students right now. Luckily, I have a healthy reserve. So one way or another, we're going to pay the bill. But yeah, the incentives, and I will say also the short-term credits. The other thing we started doing, which students really responded well to, is if they would sign on, especially students who were not engaging, we would say, if you will log on at least once a day into one of our platforms, come the end of the week, we will give you a $10 Amazon credit, or we'll give you, and so we were issuing cash credits back to students to be able to keep them engaged and get them to try to stay motivated. And I realized that that requires some resources. And so I know that can be tough depending on the size of your universities or your schools and what resources you have access to.
Thank you very much, Michael. Then how do you support your students with connectivity issues, which is a big problem in South Africa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, my perspective is going to be somewhat limited to the experiences I have here in the United States. One of the local vendors here, Comcast, has actually partnered with education. And so part of what they started doing, because Comcast Corporation, for every Comcast customer, when they send you your modem and router, it actually, you have to sign when you read the fine print, which of course none of us ever read all of the fine print in those legal documents we sign. But in the fine print in those legal documents, if you are a paying customer, you actually are giving rights to the company to make certain access available to others on the extended network. And so there actually is a free Wi-Fi network that's available. So for instance, in my home, I am paying for the highest level of internet access so that I can be able to work and do my job. But I also know that I have a neighbor 3 doors down who both parents lost their jobs and they have 2 young daughters and they have no internet access at all. But as long as they have a Wi-Fi enabled device, which can be a smartphone or whatever device that they have, as long as they have a Wi-Fi enabled device, they actually can tap into the unsecured portion of my network to be able to have connectivity. And the networks have enough robust access that you can cover a period of space that way. The other thing that we have done too, and again, we made this investment because we had some of the resources to do so. We invested in buying 5,000 hotspots. And so any student who said that they could not have connectivity, we would deliver to their homes a special hotspot that they could use, that they could connect to a phone or a computer that gave them internet access. And so that was, again, one of the tools. Now, I realize, again, we had the resources to be able to purchase those so that we could make them available. We also did have some private donors that we worked with. We had a few corporations that were very generous and made gifts from $500,000 to $100,000 to allow us to also buy additional tools. We also have a partnership with Dell Computers. They made some laptops available to us at significant discounted rates. And so that's how we were able to achieve having so much technology to be able to distribute to our students. We also know, because I also work with some of the local primary schools, and so the town in which I live is actually near a city school that has a very poor district that has very limited connectivity. And so they did the same as well. They partnered with an energy firm, actually, and they had done a drive-through pickup because they were not able to deliver them to all the students' homes, but they set every afternoon for a 2-hour period, they had a socially distanced drive-through where you could come through in a certain week and drive through and pick up devices for your children to be able to work from home.
Thank you very much. There's another 3 comments that I'm going to take. Thanks, Michael. A great presentation. Your work is really great and inspirational. I just want to know how you are supporting postgraduate students who were supposed to do lab or field work for their thesis dissertations during this time.
So part of what we're looking at, and of course a lot of it really varies from discipline to discipline. For some, like for instance, for our biology labs where they actually had to do dissections and things of that sort, we actually went ahead and had our faculty, they came on campus just long enough. We actually created lab packages where we took, feral pigs and things of that sort, put them on dry ice in packages that we mailed out to the students so they could continue to do at-home dissections and things of that sort. And then they would video the dissection and send the video to the professor so that the professor could assess whether they successfully were able to do the lab and give them feedback on their techniques. We also had students who had certain field work in the social sciences. And so we had some graduate students who had to do so much observation and interview. And obviously it's challenging to do that in this virtual space. And so we were able to find some alternative assignment solutions where they could do work. If they had to do interviews, they could do some virtual work, but for observations, especially if they were doing commonplace observations, we basically said, you need to think about what are ways you can re-envision your research questions so that you can utilize ethnographic skills through virtual engagement. And so it could be that you're not doing live observations because those don't exist, but you would find videos of different activities or different experiments that happened in the parks, or find other people's research and do critiques of research that already existed. So the solutions were not all perfect, and not everything fully emulates the same level of intensity. We also did have some graduate students who actually said, we would rather pause some of our research because we don't feel we're getting the same quality. So we did give graduate students in particular the option, if you wanted to pause your current term research, we would give you an extension at no cost. So you would not have to pay the additional tuition dollars moving into a future term to be able to get your research completed. Unfortunately, that did mean for some of our graduate students, some of them had to make the difficult decision to delay their graduation. We had some who were supposed to wrap up some research this semester that they themselves didn't feel comfortable with the quality of their research, and they decided to delay their graduation to December so they could have additional months to really work on their work differently. And we left that up to each individual student to determine what was the right fit for them. For those students, though, who were committed to still graduating in May, and for those students, particularly those who had jobs that they needed to graduate for, we told them that we would work with them on their academic standards to find reasonable alternative solutions to make sure that no one was going to be negatively impacted in their progress based on having to move to a virtual environment.
Thank you. Another question was very similar, and you don't need to attend to that separately. And the last one I have is any advice for student affairs on how to show care and support for students outside of the academic project? I think you may have addressed many of that in your presentation. Maybe a summative answer, please.
Sure, certainly. I think first and foremost, people want to they want to hear you say that you care. And they want to see you, and they want to see you not just in your administrative role, but they want to see you as a human being. And so one of the things that I did very early on in the crisis was, as we were putting together some quick little videos to promote and market the different services we were offering, is I made sure to wear casual clothes from my home. Actually, behind me, I'll move my screen. I have my stair stepper in the background here in my home office / gym. And so I actually did some videos where I was showing students, here I am on my stair stepper at home, keeping engaged, and I want you to do the same thing. I want you to join me in taking care of yourself the way I care about you and I'm trying to take care of you. We had comedy nights. We did things just to make sure that students were seeing a very human side of all of us during this crisis. And I think that's the most important thing you can do. Tell students you care. Tell them you're still here. Make sure that there is a way that they can communicate with you so that you can be aware of what their needs are, particularly those students who might be most vulnerable, particularly students who are having mental health challenges. Make sure that even if your university doesn't have the resources, connect them with community resources, connect them with Golden Key. We can assist you with certain resources. I know Elmi was sharing with me the wonderful resources that are available to all Golden Key members in South Africa that actually far exceed what we're offering in the United States. So I think that's amazing. So yeah, just do know that, there are solutions, and we just need to make sure that people keep hearing that message over and over. We are here for you. We do care about you, and we're all in this together.
Thank you. And then Kateko again says it's very good and a good question. And Chris Jurgens, thank you very much for an excellent webinar. Kind regards, Chris. And that seems to me like the question. So well done, Michael. I think we have dealt with all questions and comments. And we really enjoyed having you with us in South Africa for the hour of your valuable time. And again, people just say thank you so much. Thank you very much. And I think with that, I want to say thank you. You also inspired me to get some of the local universities to come and share with our members what have they done in terms of dealing and mitigate the risks of COVID-19 on academic achievement. We do appreciate you. Keep well and be safe. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.